These are the EU election results, and the EPP group absolutely smashed it, gaining an extra 10 seats compared to last time. But there was all this buzz about a far-right surge, but it doesn't really look like one, right? I mean, the ECR and the IND definitely grew, but can that be labeled as a surge? Well, hold on a sec. Check out this massive pot of 100 unaffiliated members. If they were to join the IND, the ECR, or any other group for that matter, things could get very interesting really fast. So which parties are currently unaligned? There are quite a few, but let's focus on the 7 biggest ones. Firstly, there's the German AfD with 15 seats, 4 more than last time. The Hungarian Fidesz party with 11 seats, losing 2. The Italian Five Star Movement with 9 seats, gaining 4. The Polish Confederation party with 6 seats, gaining 6. The German BSW with 6 seats, up from 0. And the Romanian AUR party and Slovakia's SMER with 5 seats each. Out of these, 4 can be classified as far-right parties, contributing an additional 13 seats. Now let's examine the right-wing conservative ECR and the far-right IND at the European level, both of which also gained seats. Adding all of these together, the right-wing to far-right representation becomes even more significant than initially thought. Not to mention, there are smaller non-affiliated far-right parties who gained 1 or 2 seats each that we haven't covered today and are not included in this total tally. Currently though, these parties on the screen are not affiliated with any European groups. Looking ahead, we see 2 possible scenarios for these 7 unaffiliated parties. The first one is that these parties can join existing European political groups. The parties on the screen can be split into 2 camps. We have the previously discussed right-wing to far-right parties that want better ties to Russia and don't support Ukraine, and then we have the more left-wing parties that prioritize peace and also want to normalize relations with Russia. The first right-wing camp mostly aligns with the Identity and Democracy group, as they share Eurosceptic and nationalistic ideologies. Here's a quick overview of the IND group and their affiliated parties, which hold seats in 9 European countries. Notably, more than half of IND's seats come from Marine Le Pen's party, National Rally, in France. Currently, the IND group holds 58 seats. The unaffiliated right-wing parties hold 37 seats. So if all the unaffiliated right-wing parties were to join the IND, the group would gain an additional 37 seats, catapulting them to become the 3rd largest party in the EU. Is this scenario even realistic though? You might remember that the AfD was expelled from the IND group only a couple of weeks ago, due to the AfD lead candidate Maximilian Krah's inability to unequivocally condemn all Nazis. Among other reasons, this stance was simply too extreme for Le Pen, leading her to remove them from the group. For more information, we have an entire video on this linked above. Given this recent history, it seems unlikely that the IND group would welcome the AfD back, right? Well, the plot thickens. An Italian news agency reported that Lega, one of the biggest parties in the IND group, sees the readmission of the AfD as a possibility, following the expulsion of Maximilian Krah. Ultimately though, Le Pen holds significant influence and shut down the idea again yesterday. We think Le Pen sees this all too risky before the French elections later this month. But after these elections, we think it is a real possibility to see the AfD back in the IND group. Next up we have Fidesz, Viktor Orban's party, who could decide to stay in the unaffiliated camp, as he didn't show any particular interest during the previous legislature into joining a new political group after being kicked out of the EPP group. As for Confederation and AUR, we see both of them as more likely to join the IND than Fidesz. However, there are issues here as well. The Confederation are extreme and are good friends with the AfD, and given the recent expulsion of the AfD, their admission is complicated. So we can only really see them joining together with the AfD. But we would love to hear from our Polish and Romanian viewers in the comments who might have some more insight. Therefore, we feel the IND could gain 26 seats, but only after the French elections. But this of course is pure speculation, and time will tell. So let's go back to the overview with the 2 camps in the non-affiliated pile. We have just talked about Camp 1, but what about Camp 2? The second camp could join the left, but we see this possibility as unlikely. The unaffiliated parties are generally not extreme left. They tend to hold more center-left positions on most matters, and for some matters, they also hold center-right positions. Additionally, they have different perspectives on migration and climate change. Their common ground with the left is primarily limited to their populist approach and their stance on the war in Ukraine. However, there is a possibility that this second camp might be contemplating the formation of a new EU political group, instead of joining the existing ones, which brings us to our scenario 2, the creation of new European groups. For example, the right-wing to far-right camp could create their own group even further to the right of the IND. Similarly, the left-wing camp could create an alternative to the S&D group, focusing on a center-left position, but opposing EU support for Ukraine. To create a new group in the EU, you require at least 23 MEPs from at least 7 countries. Looking at today's unaffiliated members, neither side meets this requirement. However, there are still many other small parties that are currently unaffiliated, so some of them might be interested in forming a new European group. First, let's take a more detailed look at the unaffiliated far-right parties in Europe. It is no secret that they find it hard to work together. For instance, Orban from Fidesz has previously openly worn a Greater Hungary scarf, depicting parts of Romania as belonging to Hungary. It's no wonder that the Romanian AUR would be reluctant to work with them after such provocations, especially given their very different ideologies. AUR has also stated that they will not join any group that includes the Fidesz party. Additionally, there are already 2 well-established right-wing to far-right groups in the European Parliament, and creating a third would only further divide the right. On the left side of the spectrum, a new group seems a bit more realistic. This is especially true for Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, also called BSW, the second largest among the left-leaning unaffiliated parties, whose policy ideas don't align with any existing European group. These policies include the rejection of sending weapons to Ukraine and the demands for the European governments to push for peace negotiations, opposition to further EU and Atlanticist integration, a somewhat socially conservative stance arguing that gender and sexuality issues are overemphasized, distracting from more relevant economic issues, advocacy for stricter immigration limits than currently in place, and a strong critique of the current approach to a greener economy, with climate change not being as central to the party's policy platform as it is for most other left or center parties in Europe. No European group currently stands for these policies. Wagenknecht could maybe gain support from Slovakia's SMER and Italy's 5-Star movement, but she would still need to secure 4 MEPs from at least 4 other countries. And the question remains, where will she get them? So these are the 2 options going forward for each of the 2 camps. At EU Made Simple, we think that the most likely scenario is that some of the unaffiliated parties on the screen will join the existing political groups. For us, it seems likely that after the French election, the IND group will grow, potentially with the AfD, the Confederation, and AUR. For now, we believe that Fidesz will stay unaffiliated. As for BSW, SMER, and the 5-Star movement, we don't see them joining any existing political group, so they will likely stay unaffiliated unless they find enough friends for a new group. But what do you think? Do you have any other opinion of what can happen with these parties? Let us know in the comments, because all of this, of course, is pure speculation. Thank you for Filippo for helping us with this video, and if you enjoy this content, please like the video and subscribe. And thank you to our amazing patrons who keep the channel going. Until next time.